Hi everybody, it's Ray from Car Freaks. We've been working on the plow truck. If you've been following the videos, you know we've been doing some work on the brakes and on the rear end and some ball joints and whatnot. When we were working on the rear end, replacing the open rear end spiders and turning it into a locked up rear end, we pulled the cover off, and when we pulled the cover off to drain the fluid, the brake lines that were on there were rusted pretty bad, and they ended up leaking. So this here being the side that actually broke right off, and we decided there's no sense in running it with those old lines on it, so we're going to redo the lines on it. So today's video is replacing used, worn out, cracked, broken, rusted through brake lines. And I know a lot of you just shiver when you hear that word bad brake line, because they are a pain to work on. But we're going to make that a little simpler for you hopefully today. So I'm not going to show you actually doing him under the truck, because we just can't video under there. It's too dark and can't see that well. So, but what I am going to show you what to do is how to make these lines on the bench and put them together here, and then all you got to do is just go underneath there and put them where they need to go. So this is our old line. This part here was on that, and then this here this here went on there like that, and that's what held it into a bracket. So we're going to do away with all the old stuff. We have a brand new line to replace the rubber line, and then this little nut will go right on there like that in the same bracket that held it before. So that being said, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you this line right here. Obviously is a lot longer than what we need. So what we're going to do is take this line and bend it to what we need. Then we're going to cut it, and we're going to take the nut and put back up in here, and then we're going to put a double flare on it. So it's going to look a lot like this line right here, so it'll go right back up underneath our truck in the stock location. Now the way this line was underneath the truck, there was about ½ inch to an inch longer here, and then this came out of the wheel seal cylinder, came down and around to the rear end, and then it went down underneath the leaf spring, and then came back up to the rear end, and then came over to where this was put in place at the center section of the rear end. So this is the line that we're going to make. This is on the driver's side, and I'll show you some of the tools that we're going to be working with to do this. Here's our cutter. It's just a simple cutter. You can get them at your hardware stores, your auto parts stores have them. They're made for steel lines and copper. So here's the cutter that we're going to be using today. This right here is a bender to get some of these bends in. This is one style of bender. You just take your line like this, you put underneath this little tab, and you just bend it. It's that simple. This is one of my favorite benders right here. So there's that one. This one here is another style of bender. You can take your line and run it through like this. This little piece here, the shoe will come down. You run it through like that right there. And then as you tighten this up, you can see the shoe will push through and it'll put a bend in it like that. This one here works really well. Have a lot of patience because it's a slow working tool. It don't work real fast, but it does good bends. This tool here is a little more easier to use than this one, because again, you put your line in like this, you bring it down here, and you just pull it around, and then there's a gauge here to tell you what your degrees are. You got 45 and you got 90 and 180 and all that, and when these marks come around through here. So a little more expensive tool. It's got different sizes you can use also in it here, but still a great tool to do bends with. All depends on what you want to pick up, what style you want to use. So I'm going to set these off to the side. I'm going to bring this tool over. This tool right here is a double flare tool made for doing brake lines. You got this piece right here. These loosen up. And then your tube goes in the whatever size you want to do. This does from 3/16 all the way up to 1/2 inch. And then you just tighten that down. You have these different dies here. And these dies here work with whatever size you're working with. And then this is your crimp tool, your press that goes down through there, makes the flare. So we're working with a 3/16 today, right here. And this is just a scrap piece. It's got a flare on one end. It's already been cut off here. And I can show you, I'll just set these off to the side here. We'll need them in a minute. We can I'll show you how to cut this real quick. It's simple. Just put it in the tool like that and just snug it up. You just rotate it. It's just like if you were cutting off a copper line, same principle. It's just steel is all. And you just keep rotating it until it gets really easy to turn, and then give it a little turn to tighten it up just a little bit. And then it slowly but surely just cuts right through the steel line. There it is. There we go. We just cut that little piece off. So I'm going to just set that off to the side. And then as you look at the end of your line, you're going to see that this little stub here can't go in there. It won't fit. Let's turn it like this so you can see a little better. See there, it just won't fit. So on your tool, most of them have this little deburring blade. And all you do is just stick that in the hole and just go around it a few times like that. And it gets that burr out of the center there. So now this will slide up in there like that. Okay, and that you got to do that because we need to run that up in there. So how the tool works, I'm just going to set the cutter off to the side. Okay, figure out what size you need. This is 3/16. So we're going to put this up into the 3/16 like that. And then we're going to set it like that. Now don't tighten it real tight because we got to set our height for it. And that's what this little shoulder right here is for. The way that works is we set this up here and we back that up just like that. And that shoulder shows you how much you need. Then what I do is I tighten this side here first. Like that. And then I tighten the other side. And make sure this one's good and tight. If you don't get them good and tight, what's going to happen is when we start pressing it here, it's just going to press it through. So our first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this with the little tip on it here, this little spot there, and we're going to put that right inside there like that. And then this part here, we'll open this up. Like this, then that goes in here, and that point goes into that little beveled area right in the center there. That keeps everything centered, so we get a nice flare. And then we just tighten this down until that bottoms out. There we go. We can back that up. Take this off, out of the way. We'll just work this off. There we go. Now we're done with that piece. And as you can see, we have a start of our double flare. Like that, if you can see that. And then we take our tool, we put it back in here, and we center our pointed area here. In that hole like that. You can see that real good on the camera or not, but that's centered in our hole. And then we take and we tighten that down. Turn my wrench over. And we tighten that down. And then we back it off like that. Okay, we just set this off to the side, and we can take our clamp loose. Okay. There we go. There you go. There's our double flare. So it looks just like this one here. This is a factory flare. This was a brand new flare when this line was bought in. And then this is the one that we just did. We went from something that looked like that, that's the piece we cut off, to something that looks like that. So this tool here was also gotten at my local parts store. I don't know, I don't remember what I paid for it. 20 bucks, 30 bucks, something like that. I've had it for a while, so it may be a little more, maybe a little less. I don't know the brand. It might be a Lyle. I'm not sure. But there you go. That's how you use that kit. So what we're going to do, and I highly recommend just getting a little piece of scrap like this and practice on it until you get a nice fitting like that, or a nice flare like that, and you're good to go. Obviously you want to know how to use your tool, so just get a scrap piece and cut it off and flare it. Cut it off again, flare it again, until you're confident that you can make a line and flare the end of it and have a good flare. Because once this line here is cut, it's cut. You got that length. So this particular tubing here, I got from my local parts store. It's super easy to bend. You can bend them by hand, really easy. I'll show you that here in a minute. Or you can use the tools, whichever you feel comfortable with. This style here, the old style, this is not the easy bend stuff. You will want to use the benders for these, because if you try to bend this by hand, you will kink it. This is the old style. And this will eventually rust. This new style here, there's a lot of copper in it as an alloy. And the tags on them, when you get them, say that they don't rust. I don't know if they do or not. This is the first time I've used these. I like the idea of it not rusting, so I bought them. And you can get them in different size. This is a 3/16. This is 1/4 inch. This is made for the supply line going down the frame. And right here, this is seamless copper and nickel. It's 90-10 tubing with black oxide coated tube nuts. So the nuts have been coated too, so or help to prevent rust. So I'm going to give them a try. Anything is worth it if they don't rust up on you and they last longer. Also, you notice I have quite a few of these longer lines here, the bigger line, because that's got to go from the firewall where the proportioning valve and all that is, all the way back to this line right here. So the end of this will actually be going into here, like that. And then this is a T, so I'll have these smaller lines coming off each side, the right and the left. To get all the way down through there, I got two 6-footers, and I think this is a 32-incher or 36-incher, something like that. You're going to want to also pick up some of these unions. These will take your lines and make them longer yet, because you just thread it together like this. Take this one here and thread it together like that. Tighten them up, and there you go. Now you got a lot longer line. So the shorter lines are a little bit easier to work with if you have to go around things like cross members and a fuel tank and stuff like that. It's a little easier to make one go down through there and around and stuff, and then hook to it and go forward or backwards, however you're working it, or both. And the unions allow you to put them together. So, all right, there we have it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start making this line right here. This broke off, and the nut and whatnot was on the end of it, so it was about, I'm going to say another ½ inch to an inch longer than this when it was under the truck. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set this like this, and I'm going to actually bend this by hand. Show you how easy this bends. Just like that. No kinks. It bent real easy. And I can bend it the other way here, approximately like that. There we go. Okay, and I can also use my bender like this. Get that little bend in there. Now it's got to go a little bit more. These bend so easy that bending them by hand is probably the preferred method. So I'm going to go ahead and go like that to there. I'll show you how to bend this one here and there. Like this. Let's see if we get that. Okay, we're getting close. We're getting really close with it. I won't get too much on that bend, but then we'll put this one in here. Like that. Just take your time and you'll get it. And the nice thing about this particular line is it doesn't have to be perfect on the first try. As you can see, I can manipulate it a little bit like that and here, and then I can put a little bend in it like this here. Like that. Okay, then I'll put another bend in it this way. And the nice thing about this type of tubing is once you get underneath the vehicle, putting it back together, you can move these a little bit. You can move them around, you can put a little more bend, you can take a little bend out, you can straighten them, you can push them around. So we're in pretty good shape. We're going to bend this down a little bit more like that so we get a little more of our original shape in there. I would highly recommend, before you cut it off, to definitely kind of put that down through there underneath the vehicle and see that it does fit. And if you do have to make some alterations, you can do it. Because again, once that line's cut, you don't want to make it where it's too short. So, there. A little more like that. Like that. Okay, so, and if you're within doubt, go ahead and leave it a little bit long and then try it, and if you think you got it, when you go to cut it and flare it, if you do leave it a little bit long, you can always cut the flare off and do it again if you need to. But I think with having it bent kind of rough shape like this, because you can always straighten it or push it or pull it or whatever as you get under there. So the line's in pretty good shape. I think is probably close enough. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. I'm going to cut it. I know it needs to go inside this fitting, so I'm going to cut it off right there. So, there you have it. This one, along with, yeah, this one here. It's not exact. I think it's probably close enough where we can make it work. Because when we get underneath the vehicle, again, we can push and pull it around. Because there's some little clips on the rear end. And I think once we start putting it under the clips and it'll hold it, it'll actually be closer than what it looks like it is right now. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Okay, now you see the nut that we have on here. We want to make sure we take that nut and we put it on here before we do any flaring. Otherwise you're going to be cutting it off and you got to flare it again, and it might end up too short if you have to do that. So make sure you put your nut on there before you start doing any of your flares. Okay. Get our tools back over here again. gauge up here, make sure we're where we want to be. Tighten this down. Put the little tab in there. Okay, now we'll tighten this down until it bottoms out. And we reverse it. Pull this out of there. And we run this right back in there. This out of the way, and this. Loosen this up. And there you go. There's your flare. And then your nut goes right over like that. So then, what we will do is we take this and this goes right in there like that. We'll leave that loose so we can move this around to however it fits underneath the truck. Get this out of the way. A little bit more bending here and there, and I think we got us a winner. So there you go. That's how you do brake lines. You repair them the same way. A lot of times you'll have to get unions because they don't always come apart where you want them to. Sometimes you have to go underneath the vehicle and cut the lines off with the tool. Cut them off under the vehicle and then slide one of these nuts up on the line, flare it under the vehicle. The tools are easy enough to use where you could actually do them underneath the vehicle. If you're too close to the frame or something like that, you may have to pull them out from the frame a little bit. But there you go. That's how you use them. Benders are easy to use. The cutters, that's simple tools. You can get them at most of your auto supply stores. So when you get brake lines and brakes, if you need the tools to do the job, they'll help you out there as well. So I hope this was a good video for you. I hope you got a lot out of it. It's not that hard. Don't be afraid to try it on your own. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and we'll see you on the next one.